Hello, and welcome to the Design for Greatness podcast. Conversations with Candice to help you elevate your mind, body, and spirit and own your divine greatness. Today, you have my interview with Jodi Rubin. Jodi is a marketing strategy and project management leader. Currently, she serves as the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Partnerships for the Reading is Fundamental Foundation. She's passionate about education, and she has overseen many international education marketing initiatives. Jodi loves to bring key initiatives to teachers and students with unique educational content and resources to inspire and engage students. I am so excited to have Jodi here because I want her to share with all of my listeners this information that she has about this free reading engagement initiative called Rally to Read. It kicks off on October 1st of 2024, and reading is just so critical to helping us find what lights us up and to inspiring us to do the great things in this world. And Jodi truly is living into her greatness as she is striving to increase literacy and empower the love of reading in others. Jodi, welcome.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's just dive in. Tell us, what is Reading is Fundamental and what brought you into this organization?
Sure. So Reading is Fundamental is a nonprofit organization. We will hit our 60-year anniversary in just another year. We started with a very basic premise, and it's still our mission today, which is to get books and reading resources into the hands of children, often children who don't have access to books in their own communities. It's hard to believe, especially when I look around, like books are such an important part of my life, but there are many children who don't have a book on their bookshelf at home. And we work very hard every day to try to change that.
Oh, I love that. When I do humanitarian trips, and I did a trip to Fiji and Kenya and Nepal, and every trip we do, we each bring our favorite book from our childhood, and we donate them to the schools. And it's amazing to see what a book does to light up a kid. And a lot of people, not even just in third world countries, but you're right, even here in America and in the States, don't have access to books in hands.
They don't, and you use the word light up. It's interesting. When we talk about Reading is Fundamental, when I first started there 7 years ago at the organization, we don't teach reading, but we do impact reading. And that's because what we bring to the table is inspiring that joy of reading. And I'm sure you've heard of the science of reading. It's a very obviously reading instruction and teachers are critical. We owe them so much every single day. I have a daughter who's a teacher, so I highly, highly applaud every educator. But when you take the science of reading, language comprehension and vocabulary words and that, and you combine it with what Reading is Fundamental does, which is create that joy, that reading motivation, that's when the magic happens. And that when you see real impact in a child's reading journey.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I believe reading is essential to figuring out your path in life, right?
Definitely. There's a saying that up until fourth grade, you're learning to read. And then after fourth grade, you're reading to learn. So just think about it. If you can't read, then every other door is closed to you. You can't be a scientist. You can't be a chef. You can't be anything because you don't have the basic skill. So once you've learned to read, you can learn to be anything. So it truly is it's the equalizer. It's the opportunity to open a door for every child. And every child deserves that. We believe that it is not a privilege to be able to read. It is a right of every child to be able to read.
It's so true. And knowledge is power. And you have to be able to read to gain that knowledge. And it is what allows you to really step into your gifts and your strengths and your talents and use that to serve this world. Reading is fundamental. It is.
Yeah, truly. I mean, it's in our work. I mean, when you look at, I hate to get into data crunching and numbers, especially on your podcast, which is so aspirational, but 25 million children in the United States don't read at a proficient level. Imagine if we can continue to work to change that, what it means for our economy and for our productivity. You have to be able to read to be ready for career readiness, college readiness, whatever your path is. That's the first piece of that path. And we have to work together. It takes a village. It can't just be one educator, one family, one community organization. We need to all be together on this pathway.
I love it. So So tell me, what is this rally to read, and how is this going to impact it and help engage all of these readers?
One, I am so excited to share this with you today because Rally to Read, as I mentioned to you when we met, is I consider it my third child. It's a big part of my life. At Reading Fundamental, a lot of our work is done at, obviously, we're a nonprofit, so we get partnerships, companies, foundations, and when we get dollars, they come in, we're able to go into communities and hand out hard books, bring community book celebration events, and they are wonderful, and there's nothing better. But not every child is going to be a part of those opportunities. So 4 years ago, we had two things happen that led us to Rally to Read. We had COVID hit, and as we know, a lot of learning went online, and we did some research. And I don't even think you needed to do the research to know and recognize that you saw reading motivation going down, reading frequency going down, and families were busy. They were trying to survive, so they weren't spending as much time on the fundamentals of getting kids reading and excited to read. At that same time, Reading Fundamental hit a huge milestone. We had supported or impacted our 100 millionth child over the almost 60 years. So we thought, what mission-centric program could we put out there so no matter where you are, what you're doing, or where you live, you could have access to stories. So that was the beginning of Rally to Read, which in reality, it's very simple. It's a 6-month reading campaign to get kids excited. We want to increase kids' reading frequency. We want them motivated. We want them engaged. And we build it so that it's 6 months. Each month has a theme, hopefully a theme that's relevant to whether you're a family or a classroom. It could be used by anyone. And we anchor every theme with read-alouds from great authors who commit and donate their time to do these read-alouds just for Rally to Read. So it's wonderful when you when you go to Rally to Read, it's I'll call it a website, free to everybody, and you listen to the read-alouds. What I love is instead of them all being super polished and elegant and edited and produced, they are grassroots. They're sitting in their kitchen, they're sitting in their family room, and they're talking to all these students right through the camera, talking to them because they're part of Riff and Rally to Read. And we had one author last year who goes, "Oh, I said that wrong. I made a mistake." "Oh, that's okay. We all make mistakes when we're reading." What's the better message for a child than to hear an author make a mistake on their own book? So that's what makes these read-alouds just so special for us.
Awesome. So anybody can join, and
Mhm.
and how does that work? They
Yeah, so
just
there is a website, rallytoread.org. It launches on October 1st, and you go to the website and it's pretty easy to navigate, and it's fun, and it's bright colors and engaging for children. And there is a read aloud. So for example, in October, the theme is community. We love that as our launch theme because community, as we talked about, is so relevant and important to reading on a child's reading journey. And there'll be a Penguin Random House, which is a publisher. There'll be a story from them. And then Barnes & Noble is a great partner for us, and they always provide a Barnes & Noble Storytime pick. The authors introduce the theme, and they share their wonderful books, and we have related book activities. So if a family member or a teacher wants to talk about the book before or after, and really, we call it creating a culture of literacy. It's not just the book, but building upon the story. We provide those activities. And then in addition, we provide packets of theme activities that you can do in the classroom, you can do at home. We don't want it to be listen to the read aloud and walk away. I mentioned, and I'll probably say this 10 more times, it's about the joy. And whatever we can do to create joy and listening to that story and then keeping that joy going is what we do. And we provide all kinds of activities to support that at Rally to Read.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That joy of reading is key, truly.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, another way that we do it is when you go to the website, you can take the pledge to read 100 books. It's very symbolic, but again, what do you do to get kids excited? And we ask that every child, every classroom, every family take the pledge. There's nothing you have to do but read 100 books between now and National Reading Month, which is in March, and it gets kids excited. And then we give them book lists and other opportunities to help reach that goal.
oh, that's so fun. So I love what you're doing, and I think it's really interesting to dive into what lights people up and why. And
Mhm.
obviously, reading is something that you are extremely passionate about. What led you to this in your life, and how has this been fulfilling a desire deep within you?
Sure. That's a great question, and one I probably haven't thought about. It's so interesting, and this may sound cliche, but as a little girl, I did not come from a family with a lot of means. We were very humble, a single mom, and reading, and when I look back at it, was a huge part of my life. I read all the time. I don't know, we used to all kinds of book challenges when I was little. Yes, I knew that I may not have had all the things that my peers had, but I had these books. And I think because I was an avid reader and I cared so much, it allowed me to grow as a student and get to a place that maybe others in my family had not gotten to. So I didn't purposely go looking for a career in reading, but I think as an adult and looking back, it was such an important component of my journey. And college and grad school. And I ended up actually in a for profit. I worked for Discovery Communications for many, many years, Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, all those great channels. And halfway through my career, I was asked to do a special project in the education division. And it opened my eyes because I started being exposed to hundreds of educators and was amazed by what they did every day and how much impact they made on a student. And back then, my work was about taking great content from, for example, a Discovery Channel show and turning that content into meaningful opportunities for students to learn and thrive. So I started building this path in education without even intentionally going that way. And then, not to make a very long story too long, I decided to take a break when my oldest, was going to college. I thought, I want to slow down. I want to enjoy this moment. I've been working since I was 12 years old. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to live in the moment, take her to college, enjoy all of that. And then an old colleague of mine, who is now the CEO of Rift, said, would you do a special project? I'm starting as the CEO of Reading is Fundamental. I said, well, I'll try it. And then 7 years later, I obviously more than tried it. You can't help but enter this space and recognize how critical reading is and then walk away from it. So although I thought this was going to be a 6-month engagement, it's a 7-year and continuing engagement, because every day the work that we do, even if it's one child at a time, is truly making a difference. And just watching a child pick out a new book when they may not own a book, there's no words that you can put to that.
Right. I love what you were talking about. I love your story. And often we end up in a place that we didn't really intend to be. However, you look back and you see that there was a purpose in all of it, in every lesson, every turn and twist of the road. And
Yes.
it makes sense now.
It didn't make sense during the journey, but it does make sense when you look back.
It's kind of like that analogy of when you're looking at something that you're crocheting or something, you look at the back and it doesn't make any sense, but then you flip it over and you see the front and it's this beautiful masterpiece. And when you're in the thick of it, it's almost like you can only see the back, like the
Yes.
knots and the, yeah. I think it's really powerful to recognize that pattern in life, and knowing that when you put yourself out there to serve and to follow a passion and to notice what makes a difference for others and for yourself, that you end up in a way where you really can own your greatness and use it to do great things. Beautiful. I was thinking about how you were talking about COVID and how it changed reading a little bit because everything was online. And I know when I'm just reading on the computer, on a screen, I'm not too jazzed about reading either. Yet you put a book in my hand and it changes everything. Do you have any statistics about that, or do you have any statistics about what an actual book in hand does for a student?
No, it's a great question. I don't have any stats in front of me, but I will share this. When we did the studies, there was true fatigue of being a digital learner. Students were on there, and I could look for quotes for you, but teachers were saying, my kids are on the computer all day. They don't want to do their reading at night on the computer. And so I could give you a more anecdote. Obviously, kids are digital natives. They are very well equipped on computers and tablets and all those great things, way more than I am, because I still love a book. But one child at an event talked about the smell of walking in and seeing all these new books. I never thought about that, right? There is a smell to a new book. So I think it captures how important the print book is just as much as the digital book. Because if a child can articulate how excited they are to feel and touch and smell the new book, I mean, numbers can only, not even bring that to justice. So we believe in meeting a child where they are. So we do have a digital library called Skybrary of ebooks, because sometimes that's another easier way to get them. But we believe so much in giving out physical books as well. We give out millions of physical books. Something I didn't even mention is in the Rally to Read program. This will be our 4th year. We give away 10,000 books.
Wow.
We have the sweepstakes for any educator in K through 5. We pick 100 educators to win 100 books for their school. We do it every year thanks to the generosity of working with Barnes & Noble. So we believe so much in the hard books. I don't know how to express what a child looks like when they have choice. I mean, there are definite research studies after research studies that when a child can choose the book they read, they're going to be more motivated to read it. And so that is a premise of everything that Reading is Fundamental is about. We do not choose the book for the child. They get to choose what is interesting to them and what's going to motivate them. And that's what we do. We do not handpick books for the kids.
Oh, it's so important. That agency is a critical thing. Like, you don't control me. I get to choose. That's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah, and I also think I just know with my kids, when they turn the page, that's like a little sense of success, right? And every time you turn a page, it's like a little sense of like, I'm getting something done. This was good. Look how far I've come. And I know I'm reading a book right now that my daughter, that just is her first year in college, she's read all of them, and they're a huge series. It's Brandon Sanderson. Anyway, it's this big, huge book, and she's like, "How far are you, Mom?" And I'm like, "This far, this far."
And that's so fun. But you know what's so interesting about that? When you think about reading aloud to your child, you think of little kids, right?
Right.
But older kids love to do as much. I used to do the same thing. My daughters are a little bit older, and I have one in grad school. Sometimes she'll say, "I'm reading this book to you," and I'll read it too, so we can talk about it. They still want to. I still think a caregiver and a parent or a volunteer can still be so engaged in the process, no matter how old your child is.
Absolutely. And it's fun, the different conversations that get started. I mean, for example, I'm reading this Brandon Sanderson book, and the main character, I call him Kaladin, and she calls him Kaladin. And so we just have this ongoing battle about how you pronounce his name. And I mean, it's just so fun, and talk about the little intricacies and the little happenings and the lessons and the things that they're going through. I love that ability to connect on different levels through books and stories. And truly, stories are what teach us and what hit us in our hearts. I mean, someone can speak and talk for hours, and what do you remember? You remember the one story they told, right? And I think it's... Go ahead.
I was going to share something that stands out in my mind so much is last year we do a culminating event for Rally to Read, and we do it at the Barnes & Noble store in New York. And last year we had the wonderful opportunity to have Hoda Kotb of the Today Show read her book, Hope is a Rainbow. And the book is all about, if you hope it, you can be it. If you dream it, you can be it. To your point, what a story. And she asked all those, I think they were first graders. She asked them to raise their hand and come up and share what their hope is, what they want to dream to be. And they had to have a media release to be filmed. We were live streaming this event for all the kids. It's part of Rally to Read. You can watch it all over the country. We'll have another one this year. And one little boy, unfortunately, did not have a media release. He kept raising his hand over and over again, and she kept calling him, not knowing that he couldn't be up there. So he was very sad. So she finishes, and he's leaving, and the little boy, you can tell he's visibly upset. And one of my colleagues, who is a former teacher, as many of them are, she went up to Hoda and said, "Would you mind just taking a moment and letting this little boy tell you what his hope is?" He wasn't able to go up to the stage. So he comes up to her and he goes, "I just want you to know, when I grow up, my hope is to be a hero." And it was she grabbed him and picked him up and was holding him. And you realize the impact of her story, right? She just read this story about you can hope it, you can be it. He's a first grader, you know, from a community that doesn't have a lot of resources. And here he was so happy and proud to share that he's going to be a hero after reading her book. I mean, that's what reading is about.
It's beautiful. Well, I am all about the mind, the body, and the spirit, and living in alignment with that. And to me, living with a mind firmly aligned is critical to living your best life. And so many of the problems that we're facing in this world is mental illness, things where our mind is out of control, things where we do not have a mind firmly aligned. In fact, our mind is being taken over by things that are not in our best interest.
Yeah.
And one thing that is powerful about reading is it gets you to focus your mind on those things. And as long as you're reading uplifting things, it helps you see how other people think. It helps you figure out how other people get in the life of someone else for a minute. And that is something that's so important to our minds. Have you noticed any correlation between like mental illnesses and reading?
I would say, oh, I have two comments if it's okay. One, I just want to share something about reading that helps you learn about others, and then I will talk about mental illness and reading. We have the philosophy, and we didn't come up with this, that books are windows and mirrors. Every child should be able to see themselves in the book that they read, but also every child should be able to learn about others through what they read. So we very much try to have such a wide selection and respect that every child, again, should be able to look in the mirror, read a book, and see themselves in that story. So I just want to make that comment. I think it's just so critical to every young reader in having such a variety of books, because you do learn about the world and others. I remember when I was back at Discovery, we talked about the fact that this group of students had never been to a beach, but they had read a book about a beach. They thought and felt very much that they had had that trip. And Reading is Fundamental last summer, we did a whole program, again, on a website, free to everybody, summer reading field trips, where if you can't get away on a field trip, you could read a book and it would take you on a virtual field trip. So I do think that's just critically important. But in terms of mental illness, I don't have any direct correlation, but we do have a lot of books and initiatives around social emotional learning and how do you leverage books to support SEL in the classroom. So we have a center called our SEL Center. It's on our website. I don't want to throw too many websites, but if you go to rift.org, it's at Literacy Central. And there's book topics and curriculum instruction and research and activities related to topics of social emotional learning for kids that really equip families and educators with content that could help them focus on and get involved in these very hard topics. Especially with COVID, going back to the classroom after COVID was truly hard for many students. They had to learn how to follow rules again. Some of them had to get out of their bed, sit at a desk. So the resources around social emotional learning that we provide don't specifically talk about mental illness, but I think they're there to help try to create pathways to support teachers for kids that are having challenges in those areas.
Yes. Well, and I think it's powerful to get your mind thinking in uplifting ways. And that's what stories do. They get your mind thinking in uplifting ways. And it's just a beautiful, powerful thing. So I was wondering, is there anything on your heart that you feel would be important as we kind of come to a close here? Is there anything that you feel like you want to share, any stories or any other information that you think might be valuable as we're inspiring everyone to go out and read and get on the Rally to Read website and get books in kids' hands? Anything on your heart that you'd like to leave us with?
That's a great question. I think my heart is just what we've said is we all love to read, and we're all fortunate enough to be able to pull out a book, whether it's on our night table, on a bookshelf, but not everybody has that opportunity, and we forget that in our day-to-day. And we can't forget that because it is all of our responsibilities as a community to ensure that every child has that opportunity. So whether it's Rally to Read, so you can listen to a read aloud and then talk about it, get your child excited, whether it's just really encouraging families if they need to go to the local library, but libraries aren't accessible to everybody. Whether it's just, to your point, having a great conversation with your child about a book and talking about it. We just have to each do our little part to make a big impact. And so I just feel very lucky that you invited me to be here today to talk about what I care about. I mean, rally to read is one thing, riff is bigger, but reading, look, you mentioned our days are crazy, our minds are going. I end every evening reading a book. I'm super type A, if you can't tell. I'm all over the place, but when I take a moment and pause, even more than yoga or Pilates or any of those wonderful things in my life, the reading my book calms me down and centers me, and I just think everybody deserves that opportunity. So thank you for letting me share that today.
Absolutely. Well said. And just so grateful that you would be here and express to everybody this passion for reading, because it truly is a beautiful way to live into our greatness and to do great things in this world. So thank you so much, Jodi.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me today. What a great initiative happening at rallytoread.org. The passion that Jodi feels about reading and getting books into the hands of kids is contagious. I know I feel inspired about doing my part to engender the joy of reading into those in my circle. It was beautiful how Jodi said books are both windows and mirrors. Windows because they give us a glimpse into the lives of others, and mirrors as they allow us to identify with and see ourselves in the characters of the stories we read. One thing I know, dreaming, believing, and having a vision, these things are so critical in order for us to grow and live an elevated life. Reading truly is fundamental. It helps us to dream. It inspires us to believe, and it busts open belief ceilings about what's possible. Reading opens minds to new ways of thinking, and it expands our vision. Reading is a great way to unwind, and truly it is one of my favorite ways to show myself some love, especially if there is a hot bath and bubbles involved. To take advantage of this program, go to rallytoread.org and sign up for the 6-month Rally to Read program. Take advantage of all the resources there. You can commit to reading your 100 books. Ultimately, I hope that you get more books in the hands of those that you love. Good books bless lives. I am offering something else that will bless your life. I have created a free mini course to get you started on the path of becoming the boss of your brain. It's called 5 Days of Focus. The mind truly is the battlefield, and it's critical that we wake up to our thoughts and learn to live with a mind firmly aligned, a body purposefully loved, and a spirit powerfully accessed. Mind, body, spirit alignment. It starts with becoming the boss of our brain, and it is the linchpin to living an elevated life. The link to this free course is in the show notes. I can't wait to help you become the boss of your brain so that you can more fully live an elevated, meaningful life of fulfillment and show up powerful in this world. Always remember, you are designed for greatness.